Man, so at the time of recording, Mortal Kombat 1 is either right around the corner for you or you've already been playing it if you shelled out the extra couple bucks to play this game early. I didn't, so I'm just waiting on Mortal Kombat 1 to release for me. And Mortal Kombat is a very, very interesting franchise for me. It's a franchise that I absolutely love, but it's a game that I kind of hate as a fighting game. As somebody who really, really, really likes fighting games, this game has always been really tricky for me because really, really early on, I never really considered this a fighting game for a while, and that might piss off a lot of people or something. I don't really know, but for me, this has just always been a really, really fun game, and I guess this harkens back to a lot of like the time that I spent with Mortal Kombat, how I've spent my time with Mortal Kombat, and overall just what it meant in like my household and like my friends and etc. Anyways, you guys, this video isn't really going to be a review or like a deep down analysis of Mortal Kombat or anything like that. This is just going to be like my experience with Mortal Kombat and what it's really meant to me as, again, just a fan from really, really early on. So let's talk about the first Mortal Kombat game I ever played, and that is Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance back on the PlayStation 2, and I absolutely freaking loved this game. Mortal Kombat for a lot of people started off in arcades, started off on Sega Genesis, a Nintendo Entertainment System if you're a weirdo. But for me, I got into Mortal Kombat with it being a 3D fighting game. For those of you guys who weren't really around for the PS2 era of Mortal Kombat, never really heard of it or pay attention to it or whatever, back then when Mortal Kombat was like transitioning to like 3D gaming, it wasn't what it was now with like the 2D 3D style of fighting games similar to like a Street Fighters or something. Back then when the early transition to 3D gaming was going on, Mortal Kombat went full 3D similar to like a Tekken, if you guys are familiar with like a Tekken or like a Dead or Alive or something. So Mortal Kombat was like that. It was a 3D fighting game, but it was a lot more janky in my opinion. They had weird things where like every character had a weapon you could use. There was like environmental fatalities. There was a lot of really, really interesting things going on in those really early PS2 3D Mortal Kombat games. And I think the first thing that really like attracted me to this game was that unlike Street Fighters, it was definitely less competitive. I feel like when me and my brothers gathered around the TV to play Mortal Kombat during that time, it was more so just for the fun, not necessarily for who wins or who loses. No one really cared about that. You kind of just wanted to like fight and then see the fatality. And I think that was a really interesting idea for a fighting game, and that's kind of why I really liked those janky 3D fighting games, or even like early arena fighters like the Dragon Ball Z like Tenkaichi games, stuff like that. So I never really treated this as like a competitive game where I wanted to win or I wanted to beat somebody up, because even if I lost, I got to see like a really cool fatality, or I don't know, we were just all having fun. So it was definitely more of like a traditional game for me where it was just entertainment than it was something that I took seriously, like competitively, like, or like I wanted to win or beat my brothers or anything like I did with something like a Street Fighters or something. So early on, I established in my brain that Mortal Kombat isn't for me a good fighting game. It's more so just a really, really fun time. Something that I find really interesting is that Mortal Kombat now is looked at as like the pinnacle of fighting game storytelling. It's like the pinnacle of like the mainstream style of fighting games when you consider like the Street Fighters or the Tekken or something like that, where there's a lot to offer for those who aren't really like fans of fighting games in general, but there's a lot of things that you can do with like the story or like just having fun, etc. Stuff like that I think a lot of people started picturing Mortal Kombat with MK9. But for me, this happened with like Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon, where they had, you know, more interesting storylines than I think a Street Fighters 4 at the time or something. They had like mini games where like Deception had like a chess game, Armageddon had like a kart racing game. Deadly Alliance introduced the crypt, where you kind of go around and spend in-game currency to unlock bonus content, art concepts. One of my favorite things was like a music video by like Adema, where it was very like early 2000s, very cheesy, with the guy with spiky hair who was trying to look cool. They had like they had a segment called Cooking with Scorpion. If you guys never seen Cooking with Scorpion, you gotta look it up. That was one of my favorite things to like unlock in the crypt, and it was just so much fun. All these little side things that I think added on to the game of those like early 3D Mortal Kombat games. Overall, for me, Mortal Kombat was never so much a competitive game. It was never a game that I fell in love with for the fighting of it. It was a game that I fell in love with the side content, with the lore, with the characters, with just the overall fun that I had playing these games. The gross fatalities that when you see and you're just like, ooh, and you kind of laugh, and you kind of get numb to it over a while, which again, we should question as a society why we're okay with this, why we're laughing at these, or why we look forward to seeing these fatalities. All this stuff that really, Mortal Kombat is more than just a fighting game for me. It's more than just a competitive. It's more than just like the ranking up or anything like that. It's definitely a game for a game's sake, and I've always absolutely loved Mortal Kombat for that. The fact that I could just turn my brain off and not care about winning or losing. I just have fun with the game. And a lot of this, again, harkens back to my time with the early PlayStation 2 games. But even when Mortal Kombat 9 came out, the story was so freaking cool. Seeing it be like rebooted, kind of like remade a little bit, where they have like a retelling of a lot of the stuff that, if you were a fan of Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, a lot of it was fan service for you. And if you were like picking up Mortal Kombat 9 for the very first time, it was a great introduction to this world, these characters, to what Mortal Kombat is. Because a lot of people thought of Mortal Kombat just the fatalities, but I promise you, it is so much more than just fatalities. There's a whole lot of rich lore with like the Lin Kuei and the Shi'ai Ryu, all these different clans like going at it, the Red Dragon, the other dragons that are in this. A lot of stuff that is caked into the world and like the gameplay and like the story that has always been there since the original Mortal Kombat games. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 did have a more in-depth story than something like a Street Fighter for that time. And then they kind of carried that on with the 3D games and into what we have like now with like the more modern day Mortal Kombat games. Anyways, man, Mortal Kombat for me has just been a fantastic franchise. Again, as like a franchise, because this isn't even getting into like the cartoon show that I used to watch all the time. This isn't even getting into like the movie that I unironically absolutely fucking love, the original Mortal Kombat movie back in 1995. We won't talk about Mortal Kombat Annihilation because that was so awkward and cheesy, but still, that one I kind of ironically like. That one is just like a cult classic. It's kind of silly for silly, but that's kind of one of those things that Mortal Kombat is. It's just kind of silly. You take it seriously because it's like an iconic franchise, but it definitely knows how to just have fun with the game, have fun with the audience, and kind of laugh at itself. And again, I absolutely love this franchise. I'm excited to check out Mortal Kombat 1 and just experience this new story, experience what other modes they have, and just overall like experience this with my friends and family. Anyways, you guys, that's gonna end this video. Do me a favor and like this video. If you guys like this video, please consider subscribing, as that does help us out tons. Let me know your guys' experience or your guys' thoughts with Mortal Kombat. With all that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video.